Hello everyone, welcome back to this series of digital electronics. So today in this video we are going to discuss about triggering in flip-flops. But before discussing about triggering in flip-flops, we have to discuss what is a clock. So clock is nothing but basically a signal which is used to trigger the flip-flop or the circuit, right? So suppose I have a SR flip-flop and initially S is 1, R is 0. So this S is equals to 1 will set the output as 1, so Q bar would be 0, right? If I change these inputs as 0 and 1, then what will happen? Then for this 0 and this 1, the output would be 0 and 1, right? But for 1 and 0 I wanted to store, suppose I wanted to store this output, and then after that I want this input to function on this and give this output to me. But what is happening here is that I when I change the input, suddenly the output is changing, right? So I want a certain period of time, certain amount of time, so that I can store this output wherever I want to store it, right? So what we will do, we will just connect a clock here, and this clock will trigger the circuit. When this clock will trigger the circuit, then only this circuit will be functional. Circuit will be functional when the clock will trigger circuit, right? So suppose I'm not the clock is such that it is not triggering the circuit. Suppose I'm having a negative edge and this is a positive edge triggering, right? I will discuss about triggering in upcoming topics, so don't worry about that. But let's see, if we are having positive edge triggering here, suppose, right? So whenever I give 1 0, I am having output as 1 0 for positive edge of this clock. If suddenly the input is changed to 0 and 1, suppose, right, and the edge of the clock is not positive and it is negative, then what will happen, that this input will not change this output. This output will only change for this input when the next positive edge will come. Whenever the next positive edge will come, then only this input will function, and this circuit will be functional for this input, and it will generate this output, right? So up to when the next positive edge doesn't come, this output will remain same, so I will store it. And after when the next positive edge comes, then this output will be delivered to me, right? So I am having a sufficient amount of time to store this output. So this is the purpose of the clock, why we need the clock, to get control the circuit in a particular manner for our needs, right? So let us discuss about types of triggering. There are major two types of triggering: level triggering, edge triggering. Level triggering can be divided into positive level triggering, negative level triggering. Edge triggering can also be divided into two parts: positive edge triggering and negative edge triggering. Let us see about now level triggering. The circuit will be functional on the positive or negative level of the clock pulse. The circuit will be functional on the positive or negative level of the clock means this is the positive level, right? Because here the clock is positive and this is a level, right? This is the negative level of the clock, right? So if I have a positive level triggering, then the circuit will be functional when the clock is in this positive level for this duration. Suppose the time period of the clock is T. So if I am having 50% duty cycle, assuming 50% duty cycle, then this would be T by 2 and this will be T by 2. For positive level triggering, what will happen? The circuit will be functional for this and so on. For negative level triggering, the circuit will be functional for this and this, right? Suppose I am having again a SR flip-flop or any kind of flip-flop, S, R, Q bar. Initially I am having S is 1, R is 0, so Q would be 1, Q bar would be 0, right? Suppose I am having a level triggering, right? This is my clock. So what will now happen is that for this whenever the clock is in positive level, then only the circuit will function. If the clock is in negative level, then if I change the inputs, then the output will not change. Why? Because the circuit is not functional in negative levels, it is functional in only positive levels. If I am having negative level triggering, then the circuit will be functional when the clock would be at negative level. If I change the inputs in the positive levels in negative level triggering, then the circuit will not be functional and the output will not change. But the output will change when I change the input and the clock is in negative level, right? So this was all about level triggering. So now let's discuss about positive edge triggering in edge triggering. So suppose this is my clock. We can see that this is the rising edge of the clock in the time period t, and this is the falling edge of the clock in the time period t, right? So when the edge of the clock rises, then it is called as positive edge triggering, and this is a negative edge triggering. So in positive edge triggering, whenever the clock is in the rising form, it is changing its value from the negative to positive value, then only the circuit would be functional. While in negative edge triggering, whenever the clock is in the time period going from high value to low value or the negative edge, then only the circuit will be functional, right? So how can I represent it? Suppose I have a SR flip-flop, then representation of edge triggering is that I have like this triangular here and clock would be here, right? And q bar. So this is positive edge triggering. But if I put a bar here, right, this would be negative edge triggering. So this is positive edge triggering and this is q bar. This is edge. If I put a bubble here, then only it would be negative edge triggering, or if I just do this thing clock bar, then it would be negative edge triggering, right? So this was positive. These are representation of negative edge triggering. Simply here in level triggering, this is positive level triggering. But if I draw a circuit like this, SR Q bar, and the clock here, it can be drawn also here, and put a bar here, then it would be negative. And also if I draw something like this Q bar and clock bar here, then these are the representation of negative level triggering, right? So this was all about clock and different types of triggering in flip-flops. I hope you understood the concept clearly in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thank you so much.